Microsoft has been perpetually in second place this generation, and I think they've finally gotten tired of it, because based on their E3 2016 conference, they really decided to try this year, like a lot. So they led off by announcing a new Xbox called the Xbox One S. It's 40% smaller, so that means that it goes from being like this big to that big, which basically means it's PlayStation 4 size now, so good for you. You caught up. You made it smaller. They also have added 4K Blu-ray support, so if you have those laying around, you can put them in your Xbox and it will play. But that also means that you can watch the Ultra HD videos on Netflix now, so that's not actually a huge number of shows, but hey, House of Cards, looking sharper than ever, right? Not only is the console itself smaller, they've integrated the power supply into the box itself. So instead of there being a brick in the middle of the power cord, it's now in the console, so it's smaller and easier to set up, maybe? Either way, it's nice to have an integrated power supply instead of having to worry about a power brick. To go along with the Xbox One S, they also introduced a new controller. Actually, let me put that in quotes, new controller. It's like the exact same controller. Like the buttons are all in the same place. It's the same shape. It's textured on the back now, and they may have fiddled with some of the colors, but it should be the Xbox One controller that you know and love. The big news about the Xbox One S isn't the improved performance or the decreased size or the additional features. It's the price. It's $300. So yeah, there's literally no reason to buy an Xbox One now. You're just going to have to wait until August for the One S to come out. Because why would you buy a regular Xbox for $300 when you can get one that's smaller and has 4K support and is lighter and, you know, like there's no reason not to wait. Even after that, however, they still weren't quite on the subject of games. They moved from hardware onto services. There's a new thing called Xbox Play Anywhere. Any game you buy on your Xbox, you can play on your PC. Any game you buy on your PC, as long as it's through the Windows Store, you can play on your Xbox. That appears to be the plan. Obviously, it only works with supported titles, but based on the contents of the rest of the show, it looks like they're planning on making that be all of their titles going forwards. One of the headlining games of this new crossplay feature is Gears of War 4, which they brought out on stage. They did a long co-op demo, so you get to see the game, the new weather effects that they've been talking about, and they made sure to mention several times crossplay between Windows 10 PCs and Xbox One. And if you really are a Gears of War superfan, there's two other bits of Gears of War news. First thing, there's a special Gears of War Edition Elite controller. It's $150, just like the regular controller, I'm sure, but this one's got like scratches and rust bits on it. So it's basically like the Elite controller, but it looks grosser. If that sells it to you, that's... Also, General Ram is going to be a new playable character in Killer Instinct, and he's going to be free for the next week, so trial. Then there was a long demo for Forza Horizon 3, which again they made sure to mention crossplay support everywhere, available on PCs and Xbox One. There's 4-player co-op, and they went to great lengths to mention how easy it is just to join in with friends. And yes, there's been cross-account functionality that existed in the previous game since everything was in a shared world, but it looks like it's going to be even easier this time. Just literally one button pulls everybody together. Forza Horizon 3 also looks like it's going to have a very large off-road focus, and I say this mainly because the trailer consisted primarily of people taking nice cars and driving them off-road, just, through the jungle, on the beach, in the mud, just all kinds of unpaved surfaces where cars don't normally go. There was a Recore gameplay demo showing off several of the different robots that you can control and some of their abilities. The next game is one that I don't really associate with Xbox at all, and that would be Final Fantasy 15, which got a brief gameplay demo. My favorite part of the gameplay demo was the fact that, like, on screen it was identified as an E3 special mission. So it was created, either it was created uniquely for this, or it was a helpful hint to help the developers remember which part to play and which part not to play. There's a new expansion for The Division called The Division Underground. It's underground. There's procedural levels as you go deeper. It expands. It's going to be coming out a week early on Xbox One, so sorry, PlayStation 4 people, you're going to have to manage not to go into the New York sewers for a week, which should be easy since that's a place that normally you try to avoid. The Battlefield 1 trailer that we saw at EA's press conference got played again, but this time, after the trailer, there was a little bit of news, which is that if you're part of EA Access, you get to play Battlefield 1 8 days before its general release. That's not quite an exclusive window for Xbox One players, but still, I mean, it's a week that you get to play the game before anyone else, and I can see a lot of people signing up for EA Access just to take advantage of that. Then, Microsoft took a bit of a break to talk about services. Services and updates to Xbox Live. First thing, they've got more servers. More servers than ever before. They didn't provide any details, but I mean, more servers is always better than less servers. They're also adding the ability to play background music in any of your games, which I believe that's something the PlayStation 4 has had for a while, but it doesn't matter. It's a good thing that they're getting it. There's a built-in looking for a group feature now, which should, I guess, I'm not sure how it's going to be implemented, but maybe, there'd be a section of the dashboard you can go to and you can, like, check job postings, and by job postings I mean invitations to join other people's games. Maybe that's how it works. Cortana support is coming to the Xbox One. So are clubs, which are basically like communities on the PlayStation 4. And there's also a feature that they didn't talk about much, which is Arena, which from their description seems like some sort of built-in tournament structure. Next came the Minecraft section of the show, where they announced increased crossplay between iOS, Android, and the PC versions. Xbox One is still left out of this party, but I'm sure it will be invited to it soon enough. They're also adding texture support, and I know that that's something that you could do with mods before, but it's a more official solution than what there's been. There's also Minecraft Realms, which is a dedicated server service. And if you were excited about being able to buy a new Xbox, you have even more to be excited about because you can also buy new Xbox controllers. There's a Xbox Design Lab now where you can design your own controllers. So you can decide which color the front plate's going to be, and the triggers, and the face buttons, and the analog sticks. The back plate, obviously, as well. And you can also write your name on the front. There was no details about pricing or how it would be implemented. I'm assuming that this is something you'd have to order through Microsoft's online store. Or they might just start releasing custom versions of the Xbox One S to go along with that, so that way, you could get it to match your controller. You can get any color combination you want. They haven't gone that far yet, but they might. The developers of Limbo had a new game called Inside. They showed basically nothing about it. I mean, it was a short, very vague trailer. However, at the end, they had the news that Limbo is free for everybody, so if you've got no idea whether you should be interested in Inside or not, go ahead and try Limbo since it's free now, and if you like that one, you just may like their next game. Microsoft then turned their focus to indie games, and they did this by showing a reel of games, which I could list every single one to you, but there's 18 of them. They're indie games, some of which are very simple looking, some of which are AAA looking. I mean, it covers the gamut of 2D and 3D and all sorts of different genres, and that's exactly the message that they would like you to get out of that reel, which is, wow, look at what variety there is in independent gaming on the Xbox One. Ark Survival Evolved was mentioned separately of that reel in a bit about how they were adding crossplay support to it. But the most exciting indie game was one called We Happy Few, which is a very creepy seeming dystopian adventure. It's vaguely like Soviet cartoon themed, but then there's clowns that have masks and you're escaping because you're not taking your happy pills. I'm not sure. It looks intense and not necessarily like scary things jumping out at you intense, but in an unsettling sort of way. If you really liked The Witcher 3, but you're just tired of all of that open world nonsense and you wish that you could just play card games, good news. Gwent is now a standalone game. All of the cards have been redesigned and the menu and all of the user interface elements have all been completely redone, so it should look better than it does in the base game, but underneath all of that, it's still the same game that you maybe liked and maybe ignored. Perhaps the most surprising part of the Gwent announcement is that they said that there's going to be a full single-player campaign. I'm not sure how much single-player you can get out of decks of 10 cards, but based on the announcement, they're sure going to try. Tekken 7 got a gameplay demo. One of the key features that was mentioned was the clean transition between fights and cutscenes. So in the story mode, when there's a fight, they fight and then it would smoothly transition into cutscene, which would then transfer into the next fight. So it wouldn't be, fight, cutscene, awkward transition. Like, it should be more smoothly integrated. And if that doesn't make you excited for Tekken 7, there's also the fact that if you pre-order it, you get Tekken Tag Tournament for free. And who doesn't like free games, right? Dead Rising 4 is coming out, and pretty much all that we got out of the trailer is that it is ridiculous. Frank West is back. He is inventing even more things and just kind of lawnmowering his way through the city with various implements of zombie death. If you thought that Dead Rising 3 maybe took a turn too much for the serious, Dead Rising 4 is just solidly getting things back on track. Scalebound got a gameplay demo showing off 4-player co-op. They mentioned that it was the largest boss that Platinum Games had ever created. I'm not sure how meaningful we should take that information as being, but 4-player co-op is certainly a development, so if you have at least 3 friends, Scalebound probably moved up a few notches on your list. If you are like me and you have fewer than 3 friends, I'm sure you can still play Scalebound all on your own. A lot more of Sea of Thieves was shown off. Specifically, they showed off a bit where they gave 3 different groups of people. They just plopped them into the world and recorded them. And it looks like it's going to be, I don't want to say an open world survival game. There doesn't seem to be much of a survival emphasis, but it's certainly free-ranging. And, there's islands off in the distance you can journey to. You can build things on the islands. It's looking more like a Minecraft sort of aimless game where you make your own fun than it is a structured experience. But we're just going to have to wait until it comes out. But it looks more like an actual game than it did before. Before it was very cartoony looking, and even though it's still cartoony, it looks less like a low-budget cartoon and more like an actual game now, which is to say, I'm much more interested in Sea of Thieves now than I was when it was first announced. State of Decay 2 got a trailer. What we've learned is that the world is still filled with zombies, and that's still terrible, but luckily for you, you can still kill them. There was a trailer for Halo Wars 2, and at the end, an invitation for a beta. Halo Wars is a game that I'm very surprised that it got a sequel, but given their newfound focus on crossplay between the Xbox One and PC, maybe they figure that now that it's basically going to be on PC, they might as well try their hand at making a real-time strategy game again. Microsoft began the show announcing new hardware, and they actually ended the show the same way, which was by officially confirming Project Scorpio. Project Scorpio is a new, updated, substantially more powerful Xbox One. They had no pictures of it. They had no real release date other than next year, but they've said that it would have 6 teraflops of processing power. For those of you not up on your PC component comparisons, that puts it somewhere in GTX 1070 range. And that is quite a large jump from the Xbox One that we have now, which is a few generations old mid-range AMD card equivalent. So if you want to look at that comparison-wise, we're basically going from mid-end 2013, 2012 technology to high-end 2016 technology. The specifics of how this is going to be implemented were, of course, not at all mentioned, but it's real. All of those rumors you've been reading online, it turns out that they're true. One interesting bit of the Scorpio reveal was that Todd Howard shows up in it, and he mentions that their vision for Fallout 4 in VR required a high-end PC, and it's amazing that consoles can do it now. And they didn't say that Fallout 4 was coming to VR on the Xbox One Scorpio, but they certainly implied that it was going to be possible, so I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't announced next year. Overall, I have mixed feelings about Microsoft's 2016 E3 conference. Because, yes, they announced a lot of things. They have ambitious plans. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. But I think the whole Xbox and Windows 10 tying, I could see that backfiring on them quite easily because there's, no reason to get an Xbox now. There's no Xbox exclusives that were announced. Not really. Because every single one of them, crossplay. And so, why would you get an Xbox when you could get a PC? And for pretty much the exact same reason. Their hardware is, on one hand, exciting. On the other hand, why should you care? Because Xbox One S coming out later. So don't buy an Xbox One, wait until the One S comes out. Well, why would you get the One S when Scorpio's coming out next year? And why would you get either of those things when you can build a PC with specs that match Scorpio's now? And I'm not saying that you should go all in on PCs versus consoles, but I'm saying that Microsoft has made it very, very easy by essentially destroying 100% of the reason why you might have wanted to get an Xbox instead of a PC. They are merging the two platforms, and dangerously so. It's possible that long-term this is going to work out for Microsoft, and there's going to be lots of people playing games on the Microsoft Store, Microsoft Digital Ecosystem, and that might be great news for Microsoft, but that's probably not great news for Xbox. Leaving aside all of those complicated questions, however, their conference was actually fairly impressive. I mean, there were 34 games that were mentioned. Granted, 18 of those were in the reel of indie games, and a good number of those are coming out on other systems or are already out on other systems. But still, there was a very large number of games and several ambitious programs. I mean, it's not very often that you get 24 games and 2 new consoles and the new controller hardware all announced at once. I do hope that Microsoft knows what it's doing. I mean, this conference shows that they have ambition, but we're just going to have to see how ambition plays along with consumers' minds, because they may have done a lot to make their games look good, but they may have devalued their game platform in doing so. Only time will tell, but in the meantime, you can play their games no matter where you are, whether it's at home on your console, at home on your PC, or on the road on a Windows laptop. And yes, that entire bit was basically what their marketing would have wanted me to tell you, but I don't really have a choice because that was what they spent all E3 telling us. Microsoft games everywhere. Well, thank you very much for watching my recap video of Microsoft's 2016 E3 conference. I hope that you will join me here for the recaps of all of the other conferences. You could subscribe, that would make it easier to find it, but you can find your way back here on your own. I believe in you. We'll see you next time.